السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وجاءوا أباهم عشاء يبكون قالوا يا أبانا إنا ذهبنا نستبق وتركنا يوسف عند متاعنا فأكله الذئب وما أنت بمؤمن لنا ولو كنا صادقين وجاءوا على قميصه بدم كذب قال بل سولت لكم أنفسكم أمرا فصبر جميل والله المستعان على ما تصفون. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We welcome everyone back to the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. And this will be our last scene before he is relocated to the palace. And we had recited these verses last week but did not get to cover them in their entirety. And these were when they returned to their father upon casting Yusuf alayhi salam into the well. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَجَاءُوا أَبَاهُمْ عِشَاءً يَبْكُونَ and they came to their father at night weeping. And we discussed some of the lessons of this regarding the weeping and regarding the night and what we should remember, or some of what we should remember. No matter what we discuss or anyone discusses, the Quran is a shoreless ocean of gems and lessons, and the more you read it, the more you extract from it. And so the next verse says that they continued saying to their father, Ya Abana, O our father, Inna dhahabna nastabiq, we went off racing, meaning racing with each other, وَتَرَكْنَا يُوسُفَ عِنْدَ مَتَاعِنَا, and we left Yusuf with our belongings, with our luggage, with our possessions, basically at the campsite, at the picnic site. We left him there and we went off racing. فَأَكَلَهُ الذِّئْبُ, and so the wolf ate him. وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُؤْمِنٍ لَنَا, and you do not or will not believe us. Two different interpretations, we'll get to it inshallah. وَلَوْ كُنَّا صَادِقِينَ, even if we were truthful or even when we are truthful. And so, of what I want to stop at very quickly here is that, you know, the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam, they planned out the perfect crime. They came at night so that, you know, it doesn't show that they're faking this anguish, pretending to be crying. And they, you know, pulled out some crocodile tears. But in the middle of all of these theatrics that they're trying to pull off against their father to convince him that they're really devastated and all of that, there was a gaping hole in their plan that they overlooked. And that is that they had requested from their father initially what? Let Yusuf come and play with us. Let him come, he can eat and he can play, right? نَرْتَعْ وَنَلْعَبْ, a few verses earlier. And then now you're saying that he was left alone by your belongings while you guys were playing on your own. And so there's no such thing, once again, as a perfect crime. We'll visit that point in this verse and in the next verse. There is always a trail, whether a paper trail or otherwise. And lying never works. You know, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, it comes to mind now that he said that a person, I would rather be, you know, say a word of truth that would disadvantage me, and it hardly ever will. Like, truth always wins in the end. I would rather say a word of truth that disadvantages me, and it hardly ever will, than say a lie to get over, and I hardly ever will. meaning the lie will always catch up with me. And so I'll always say the truth, even if it's going to hurt, because it's probably not going to hurt. It's, the honest person does come out on top in the end. And lying in general is just, aside from being just such an ugly quality, it is a failed, method time and time again, because lying is not sustainable. Because when you accept to lie, then you have to, put together a whole nother set of lies to basically, make your one lie believable. And you'll always miss a spot, and there'll always be more factors you need to cover up on. And so lying is not sustainable. It requires endless patchwork. It always gets exposed sooner or later. That's why, it's reported that Abraham Lincoln, and this is a word of truth even from a non-Muslim, we are to take it and benefit from it if it is aligned with our values, even if it's not expressly stated by our sacred texts. They are the metric by which everything else is stated, but it does not mean that they are the only source of wisdom. Allah Azza wa Jal has placed within human beings wisdom by way of their fitrah and otherwise. And so Abraham Lincoln, he used to say that no man's memory is good enough for him to be a successful liar. He'll always forget something. And it may have been Mark Twain who said, if you just tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said, right? Like, oh, what did I say to that person about that person? And then what if these two people speak? And it just endless maintenance for a lie. And so they said, they lied by saying, we want him to come play. And now, in the middle of their busyness with acting like they're weeping, they overlook the fact that they said, we left him while we played. And then the brothers said, وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُؤْمِنٍ لَنَا وَلَوْ كُنَّا صَادِقِينَ. And you would not believe us even if we were truthful. And this was one of the more difficult verses for me to understand in the surah, because there is an assumption there that is not in the surah, the scholars mention, and depending on whether or not the assumption is true, the interpretation would follow. And so basically, there's an inconsistency. Their lie is clear to us. And for sure it was clear to Yaqub alayhi salam. Did he object yet? The verses don't say that he objected just yet. Like, they say this, then they say one more statement in the next verse, and then Yaqub alayhi salam responds, calling them out on the lie, basically. But is this the first time, in that later point, that he called them out on the lie, or did he object now, and so they brought even more evidence to keep trying to sell their lie? And so basically, according to the opinion that he objected at this point, he said, what are you talking about? You left him alone, but you took him to play. What are you trying to hide here? Right? Then, according to that, some scholars said, so they responded and said, and you would not, basically they accepted that there's a lie here, even when we're truthful, you don't wanna believe us. Or even at the other times when we're truthful, you don't believe us. That could be the interpretation. The other interpretation is that he didn't object yet, and they're trying to quickly move on to the next subject, and so they basically say, وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُؤْمِنٍ لَنَا وَلَوْ كُنَّا صَادِقِينَ. And we know, like he didn't speak yet. That's the assumption. He didn't speak yet. Say, he got eaten, and we know you're not going to believe us. Meaning, don't say you don't believe us. We know you're not going to believe us even if we were truthful, meaning the most truthful people on earth. Not saying that they're lying. They weren't called out according to that interpretation just yet. But even if we're the most truthful people on earth, we understand this is really hard to believe. That the very thing you feared most of the wolf eating him is the very thing that happened, that he was eaten. And so it's almost like a sinister way of them rushing past the conversation, so he doesn't get caught up on that detail. We know it's crazy. We know you're not going to believe this, but believe it or not, it actually happened. And so they're basically, in that interpretation, clumping themselves with the most truthful people on earth, that we know it's not nothing of our fault that you don't believe us. It really is crazy and unfortunate, but we're just going to have to accept it. That sort of thing. And so it moves on now to the next verse, that they bring out more evidence, either in response to Yaqub's objection or just this is all part of their opening statement. We went to play, we left Yusuf, he was eaten, and I know it's hard to believe, but it's a reality. وَجَاءُوا عَلَى قَمِيصِهِ بِدَمٍ كَذِبٍ. And they came bringing false blood on his shirt. So they brought Yusuf's shirt, alayhi salam, and on it was false blood, meaning blood that wasn't Yusuf's blood. Maybe they slaughtered maybe a lamb or something, or a chicken, and they just, soiled the shirt in blood and stained it in blood. And so they brought that and they rushed it forward as evidence to their father. And that was the even bigger mistake, the scholar said, right? There's no perfect crime. The bigger mistake was the fact that they forgot when doing that in the middle of, blood is going to be so convincing. They forgot to rip the shirt when they were staining it with blood. Which, is that even possible? That a wolf can ravage a person to death and blood can, emerge from their wounds while the fabric on top of the wound has no marks on it, right? And so there's no teeth marks, there's no claw marks, and you're saying he was eaten by the wolf, like he wasn't just bit once or something. He was eaten by the wolf while you guys were gone. And so the trail is always discovered eventually. So many times in this world, and even if it's not in this world, then no such thing as a trail. Allah is aware of every single detail. He's the best witness over all things, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Yaqub alayhi salam, he considered these things, right? And he realized them, and he was deliberate in not allowing himself to be taken by the heat of the moment, which is the possibility that Yusuf alayhi salam was in fact harmed or otherwise. We will say later that he knows that he didn't die for some reasons here, but just in general, Yaqub alayhi salam sat there and analyzed these things, and it just didn't add up. And this is important for everyone, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the quality of deliberation, just to hold your horses and just hold on a second and put your mind ahead of your heart, let it filter the information you process. That's crucial in the face of rumors, and not just rumors, even when evidence is presented for them, because just like these brothers did, they offered a semblance of evidence, right? They offered a story, right? We were gone, that's why we didn't protect him. They offered some more evidence, right? Or pseudo evidence, right? Here's a shirt and there's blood on the shirt. So a liar will still, present evidence to make his or her case believable. And so it is not a rumor that's enough for us to totally just, forget our due process. And it is not even evidence. It is about the right evidence, the stronger evidence, the evidence that is deliberated over. We got to push ourselves to do that. For sure, it could be an emotional roller coaster to just sit there and be calm and just think about it before. But remember that at least the Prophet ﷺ said to you, Al-ajalatu min ash-shaytan, that haste is from shaitan. Shaitan causes you to haste and rush into things. And so you can make a grave decision, a harmful decision against yourself, put yourself through something unnecessary, or against others. I hate to use this example, but I guess it comes with the space, the English literature space that I was dragged through as an undergrad. You think of the story of Romeo and Juliet, right? One person kills themselves, thinking that the other person had killed themselves, when they had not yet died. And so when that person awakens and found out that they killed themselves over them, then they killed themselves. What a symbolic incident, whether fiction or not is not the point. So many things happen like this. You get worked up, or you make decisions, or you lash out, or you break down over something that may not even be true. And so haste is from shaitan. And so hold your horses and ask Allah Azza wa Jal to defog your glasses. The heat of the moment gets things very foggy. And so be aware of that. And so Yaqub alayhi salam, when he did deliberate, he remembered, oh, wait a minute, just you guys, your story doesn't make any sort of sense. But more important than your story, I know Allah Azza wa Jal's story. he told me through the dream the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. This is a beautiful lesson, right? That when you're weighing evidences, if you're sure of something from Allah, then that outweighs everything else, so long as you've understood it properly. And so Yaqub alayhi salam is a prophet here. He has the most perfect understanding about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so he knew for certain that the incident of the stars prostrating to Yusuf alayhi salam was not just a passing dream. This was a revelation from Allah. He knew that. And since the stars haven't yet prostrated to Yusuf alayhi salam, then the wolf did not eat him. Okay? And so it's about weighing the stronger evidence. And if the stronger evidence, and if one of the two evidences involves what you're certain about Allah's promise, or what you're certain about Allah's ruling, His verdict, then that always has to win. And so if we can put it in different terms, the promise of Allah Azza wa Jal, we are always to be more confident in it than even what our eyes see, even what is presumed to be of evidence. You know, interestingly, you find in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal says, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. Have you not seen what your Lord did with the army of the elephants? The army of the elephants, as you know, the elephants tried to attack Mecca, the army of Abraha, Allah destroyed them. So many people that hear the Quran did not attend this incident, even among the Sahaba, the younger Sahaba and otherwise. This happened 40 years before the Quran began descending. And so anyone who was younger than that, right, did not see this. Yet Allah is saying to them and to everyone after them, do you not see, or did you not see what Allah did? And so some scholars said this is a reminder of sorts that it's enough that Allah is telling you He did it, so it is as if you've seen it, or even more certain that which you see. Because we believe with our insight, when we know Allah is speaking, with greater confidence than we see with our eyesight. And so the promise of Allah, we are more confident in it than the lies people try to sell us. And that's like an expanded rule. You can spend that in everything. Like people or shaitan will tell you this charity means your money will decrease. Allah said no, charity increases your money. Yeah? The media, mass media and social media tells you that these people who are far away from Allah are just so happy and living a fabulous life and otherwise. But Allah is telling you they're miserable. And so believe Him, because not just do you need to believe Him more than you believe your own eyes, you see time and time again that these personalities, what we thought about them is not true. They break down and they fall apart and their true colors come out, and their relationships are worse than all of ours combined, and to the end of it. You know, the commercials that tell us that this car is going to make you happy, or this, you know, purse is going to make you happy, or that new look, or that new material possession is going to make you happy. We remember the promise of Allah that no, being content with what Allah grants me at heart is the only thing that will make me happy. It's the only thing that will satisfy me. And even I was considering this morning on the ummah level, like how many times the ummah has been sold a lie about solutions that are like un-Islamic, basically. Supposed shortcuts. We're told they're shortcuts, and so we adopt them as an ummah, but they disappoint us time and time again, and it is the promise of Allah and the door of Allah that we have to knock on to actually find some rebuild and some reform and some betterment for this ummah. And so Yaqub alayhi salam knew the promise of Allah and saw the evidences of his sons, and so he believed the promise of Allah more than what his eyes were indicating. He saw past the shirt and saw past the lies, because he saw with the light of God. May Allah grant us and you a light by which we observe the world and understand our surroundings and understand our trajectory. And so after he realized they were lying for all those reasons, story doesn't add up, cut shirt, Yusuf cannot be dead because the stars haven't prostrated to him yet. He said he understood that this is not true, but at the same time Yusuf is not there. Like there's still a tragedy here, which is the separation from his father that he had to endure, and he doesn't know how long this is going to be, and he doesn't know what his poor young son is going through at the moment. And so he said, فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. So what I'm going to have to do is resort to beautiful patience. Beautiful patience means a lot of things, but of them is like patience without complaining just for the sake of complaining, right? You speaking to seek help is not contrary to beautiful patience, but beautiful patience means that you don't complain of Allah to His creation. You don't complain of the most merciful to those who don't have a shred of mercy in them except what Allah endowed them with in the first place. Beautiful patience, of course, baseline patience, that you don't object and you don't disbelieve and you don't you don't panic in a way that the faithless person would, but at the same time you also don't express it in a way that shows any sort of discontentment with your wise, perfect, merciful Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said, I will resort to beautiful patience. And before he said that, actually, there's a passage that I skipped there. He said, بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسُكُمْ أَمْرًا. Rather, your souls have enticed you to something. Like, you guys are up to something. And so I will resort to beautiful patience. Like, part of beautiful patience that you don't do anything haram. Not even, like, he didn't lash out against his own sons. He didn't say, like, how good you monsters. He didn't do all of this. He understood that it was something out of his control. He understood that at the moment, and so since there was nothing to be done, then he just had to, find his peace for the moment until Allah Azza wa Jal shows him the correct way. And being patient also, when it first strikes, you can just flip out and then just calm down and say, let me be patient. No, patience is when it first strikes. And so you see that, like, the amazing faith of Yaqub alayhi salam here, and the amazing akhlaq also of this prophet who's being, conspired against by his children. He knows it and he sees it right in front of them, and he doesn't disown them. He doesn't, expose them. And so he sought refuge with Allah. He said, Sabrun Jameel, Wallahu al-Musta'an. And Allah is the Musta'an. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. We seek strength with you. So Allah is the Musta'an, meaning He's the one relied on, the one sought out for strength. He reminded himself, this is an important lesson, that there is no strength for anyone to be patient with anything. Nevertheless, like such beautiful patience, you cannot be patient in the least over any difficulty without Allah helping us. And then again, let alone what he's going through, this war that's happening inside him. Like Al-Razi said, you have these impulses which are very normal, very human, evoking panic inside you, thoughts racing, like psychological roller coaster. And then on the other hand, you have your religious impulse, your spiritual impulse telling you Allah has it under control. Just be patient till Allah shows you the steps to be taken. Just hold on, right? And so to conquer with that in the war that's going on inside you, and the fires that are ablaze, requires Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. If He doesn't help you, you'll never be able to. And we should all learn that phrase, Allahul Musta'an. Whenever you feel like you don't know where to turn, or the walls are closing in, or I'm confused, or I'm overwhelmed, say Allahul Musta'an. Allah is the one relied on for strength. I don't have to carry this alone. I'm not gonna rely on myself for this. Nobody can do this without Allah, and He's always there for us. He will never leave us to our own devices, our own despair, if we turn to Him. There's one question here that is important to address, that Imam Al-Razi in his tafsir he visits, and I'll read it to you before I close here, which is, if Yaqub alayhi salam knew for certain that his son was definitely alive, why didn't he assemble a search party and have everyone in town go out in every direction to look for him? So Imam Al-Razi rahimahullah, he said, Yaqub alayhi salam knew that Allah would guard Yusuf from all dangers, and that his affair would become grand in the end of the story. And also he didn't want to expose his sons' crimes, the crimes of the sons who conspired. And he couldn't get himself to accept to be the one to basically spark or go out to the world with the ill mention of his own sons that's going to now circulate on their tongues if they find out about this. And so he knew that there really was no benefit in doing this. Plus, there would be a great deal of harm in doing this, like sounding all the alarms, if you will. And he says, why would he not be able to accept this? And he says, because a parent, when one child wrongs the other, he says the father suffers great distress. And of course, can apply to the mother as well. He's probably framing the father here as like the disciplinarian. The father suffers great distress either way. Like when the siblings fight, the father suffers great distress either way. He says because his heart burns for the wrong child. Like the victim, a father's heart burns for the wrong child if he does not defend him and avenge him, meaning by punishing the other one, if he does not avenge him. But at the same time, his heart burns for the other child, the oppressor, if he has to exact vengeance against him. Like it's a lose-lose. Like how do I win here when they're all my children? Even if some of them are oppressors, even if some of them are, delinquent and corrupt. And so Yaqub alayhi salam was not able to bear and could not see the benefit in putting himself and his children through that when it would not bring about any benefit. The point is, it should not be understood that beautiful patience involves doing nothing. And that is why you will see later that at the end of the story, Yaqub alayhi salam will say sabrun jameel, beautiful patience, when the other son is taken, and then he'll send out the search party. But this was a different situation, and his deliberate, and analysis of it, and his faith which allowed him to be deliberate, and him relying on Allah Azza wa Jal, which is at the heart of a person's faith. This is why he reacted this way, not because patience equals indifference or apathy or just being a feather in the wind, as they say. That's all. And so that is where we will conclude here. And inshallah, we will mention him being sold into slavery and sent off into the palace. And next week, inshallah ta'ala, we may delay the class for a day or two because it will be the day of Eid, Friday night, and so maybe we'll make it on a Sunday or a Monday, or just skip it to the following week. Jazakallah khairan, keep us in your prayers, and you are in ours. May Allah Azza wa Jal fill us and you and our hearts with the light of the Quran, fill our homes with the light of the Quran, and allow us to benefit with that which He has taught us, and to teach us that which will benefit us and increase us in knowledge. Allahumma ameen. جزاك الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.